Picture the scene. Los Angeles International Speedway. Piston Cup finale. Lightning McQueen, Chick Hicks, and the King are locked in a three-way sprint for the biggest trophy in the sport. Then Chick does the unthinkable. He slams into the King on the final lap, sending him barrel rolling across the asphalt in a shower of sparks and shredded metal. McQueen is meters from winning his first career championship. He hits the brakes. He turns around. He pushes the King across the finish line himself. You've seen it 100 times. You cried at least once. But what you probably didn't know is that this exact sequence, the crash, the sacrifice, the pushing, is a near shot-for-shot recreation of something that actually happened in real life, on a real Sunday afternoon, in front of a real crowd who couldn't believe what they were watching. Here's what nobody tells you. The race was the 1992 Hooters 500 at Atlanta Motor Speedway, November 15th, 1992, and the driver everyone remembers from that day is a legend named Richard Petty. Yes, that Richard Petty, the king of NASCAR. 7-time champion, 200 career wins, the most recognizable driver in the history of American racing. November 15th, 1992 was Richard Petty's final race. He had announced his retirement months earlier and toured the entire season as a farewell. Fans lined up outside every track just to see him one more time, and in his very last race, on lap 95 of 328, Petty got caught in a multi-car wreck. His iconic number 43 caught fire. The king of NASCAR ended his career in flames on the backstretch of Atlanta. Think about that for a second. The most famous driver alive. His final lap. His final chance. Over. The connection to cars gets impossible to miss when you look at the details. The character in the film is literally named the King. He drives number 43. He wears the exact powder blue paint scheme of Richard Petty's real-life Plymouth. And in a detail most fans breeze right past, the voice of the King in the movie is Richard Petty himself. His wife Linda voices Mrs. the King. Pixar didn't just borrow the inspiration, they hired the man. Now you might wonder why John Lasseter cared so deeply about this specific race. Here's the piece that changes everything. Lasseter took a cross-country road trip with his family in 2000 that reshaped the entire concept of cars. Along the way, he became obsessed with American racing culture, Route 66, dirt tracks, the small towns that raised NASCAR into a religion. When he sat down with Petty for research, the story of that 1992 finale came up. Lasseter never let it go. The pushing across the line moment has its own real-life origin, and this one hits even harder. In 2001, at the Daytona 500, Dale Earnhardt was killed on the final lap while blocking for his teammate Michael Waltrip and his own son Dale Jr. so they could win. The whole sport froze. Earnhardt's death was the single most devastating moment in NASCAR history. He gave up a chance to win to protect the drivers behind him. That's the spirit McQueen absorbs in the final seconds of the film. Pixar layered both events into one scene. The King's crash mirrors Petty. McQueen's sacrifice mirrors Earnhardt. Two of the biggest emotional beats in racing memory, fused into a 2-minute finale for a movie marketed to 7-year-olds. That's not a coincidence. That's a love letter. What most fans miss is a small line McQueen says right before he turns around. This grumpy old race car I know once told me something. It's just an empty cup. That's a direct callback to Doc Hudson, and Doc Hudson himself is based on another real driver, Herb Thomas. Two-time NASCAR champion in 1951 and 1953, whose career was ended by a brutal crash at Shelby, North Carolina in 1956. Thomas never raced competitively again. His story of a champion pushed out of the sport before his time is Doc's story, almost line for line. So the finale isn't one homage, it's 3 stacked on top of each other. Petty's last race, Earnhardt's last act, Thomas's ghost whispering in McQueen's ear. The obvious question here is whether Richard Petty knew all this when he recorded his lines. He did. Petty has said in multiple interviews that voicing the King was surreal because he understood exactly what Pixar was doing. When he watched the finished film for the first time with his family, he reportedly went silent for the entire final scene. His grandson later said Petty didn't say a word walking out of the theater. He just nodded. That's the reaction the animators were chasing. The technical work behind the crash is its own story. Pixar's animators studied over 200 hours of real NASCAR footage. They rebuilt the physics of a stock car flip from scratch. The way the roof crumples, the way sparks travel across concrete at 180 miles per hour, the exact number of rotations a car makes before it lands. The King's wreck lasts 6 seconds on screen. It took the animation team 14 weeks to complete. And here's something wild. In the original storyboards, McQueen won the race. Straight up. No sacrifice, no pushing. Lasseter looked at those boards, sat with them for a week, and threw them out. He said the movie had no soul without the ending we know now. The entire third act was rewritten around one idea. The trophy doesn't matter. The person you become while chasing it does. It was a bold call. It was the right call. A kid's movie about a race car turned its finale into a meditation on grief, legacy, and letting go of ego. And it worked because it wasn't invented. It was remembered. Go back to that date. November 15th, 1992. Richard Petty rolling to a stop in a burning car, waving to a crowd of 160,000 people sobbing in the stands. 14 years later, an animated version of him crossed a finish line he never got to cross in real life, pushed there by a rookie who understood what the moment meant. One last fact before you go. Pixar's tribute goes even deeper than the finale. At the end credits of Cars, you'll see a quick sequence of vintage race cars flashing across the screen. One of them is a blue number 43 doing a slow victory lap around an empty stadium. No dialogue, no music cue, just the car, alone on the track, driving forever. That's the ending Richard Petty never got, and Pixar gave it to him anyway.